to you from time to time to actually pose those questions to Dr. Trikamjee. Otherwise, I'm going to end up just reading them out, and you guys will be tired of hearing my voice by the time that this is finished. So it's just an opportunity for us to have, and I know that Dr. Trikamjee didn't want to make it too formal, to have more of a relaxed Q&A, but obviously we do want to make sure that we take this opportunity, and I know how busy Dr. Trikamjee is. So thank you once again, Dr. Trikamjee. If I could hand over to you just to once again remind everyone about your background, what it is that you do, and how you got into that particular area, and then obviously the role that plays in terms of people's health around allergies in particular, and obviously dust mite allergies really in particular. Dr. Trikamjee.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Firstly, please call me Thulja. You don't have to call me Dr. Trikamjee. And that goes to everyone. I'm a pediatrician first, I'm sure most of you know, but also an allergologist and immunologist. I'm sure many of you, prior to hearing about me or working with Clean My Bed, never knew there was such a thing in South Africa as an allergologist. It's a relatively new subspecialty. So basically, you specialize in a specific field, and allergy and immunology now is a subspecialty where you do a 2-year fellowship specifically studying allergy. So allergy, and I think I've seen some of the questions you guys put through. Allergies include allergies on your skin. So that's eczema, urticaria, hives, skin rashes, hay fever, all forms of hay fever, allergy, asthma, and then also food allergies as well. So that's my particular field, and dealing with immune conditions as well. Yeah, I don't have anything much else to say about myself. I do have a keen interest in DustMite. So from the time I did my fellowship, my research in that time was on DustMite. And one of the big research pieces we did recently and published in the last year was where we vacuumed up mattresses in southern suburbs of sort of middle income homes, and we vacuumed up sheets because most people in rural areas don't really have mattresses to sleep on, but sheets where human bodies were sleeping at night, to compare the components of the dust. So we basically looked at dust mite, we looked at cat, dog, peanut exposure, because you get that in dust as well, moles, mouse allergen. So that's where my interest in specifically what you guys deal with comes in, because I have a very keen interest in what comes out of our mattresses and the components in the dust that we find in our homes. I'd also like to say at the start that I'm very impressed. I work with lots of companies, and I think that as a medical doctor, it's really great to see that you guys are not just wanting to see doctors on the surface and just sell your product. The very fact that we've made this arrangement to have this talk now is very impressive as a doctor, that you guys actually are really interested in the science behind what you do. And I think that's going to go far in making your team and your business successful.
Myself. Thank you. Thank you, Thulja. I'm not going to call you Dr. Trikamjee again. There were a number of really good questions that were put forward from the ambassador team, and I know that those have been shared with you. But Ian, I can't recall if you remember your question or not. I'm going to start off with you. I did share it on the ambassador, the country manager's chat. Ian had a question related to, let me just get back to there, regarding the conditions and symptoms. Ian, I don't know if you want to just pose that to Thulja.
Yes, okay, thanks, Barry. And yeah, thanks for putting the reminder out there for us. It's always very helpful. Yes, Thulja, thanks for your time as well. This is great. I know we still have not got to meet, but we will get that right at some point. The question that I had was, we list a number of conditions and symptoms, and we talk about rhinitis, and we talk about hay fever, and we talk about various different symptoms. When it comes to dust mites, are there one or more symptoms that would indicate a dust mite allergy over, for instance, a pollen allergy? So just to try and, can we narrow it down?
So firstly, and I think this might answer one of the other questions, because I just had a chance to skim through the questions you guys put forward. Dust mite allergy is the commonest allergy we see, hands down. In South Africa, dust mite specifically is probably the commonest allergy we see, because dust mite is the most prevalent allergen everywhere, irrespective of, and that's the study we did, whether you in a rural area or you in an urban area. You could be here in a developing country, you could be in a developed country. Dust mites are prevalent everywhere, and that's why it's one of those allergens that's very, very significant. In terms of streamlining, most patients would think with dust mite that they either do or don't have hay fever, and they would talk about that symptom and say, well, I don't have an itchy nose, I don't have itchy eyes. And many doctors, GPs would probably say that as well, as that if we're looking at allergy, if their patients don't have hay fever, then this might not be a good solution. Dust might affect, like we said in the start, everything, including your skin as well. So many kids, so when you have parents who have kids who have really bad eczema, some of them could be because of environmental allergy, and some of these kids could even have food allergy, because usually they present with food allergy earlier on. You guys probably aren't aware, but when you're vacuuming the mattresses, you're removing peanut protein and egg protein from the mattresses as well, because we find that dust has all of these components. So that study which we did, we found, and we specifically looked for peanut protein in air, in dust, and in the environment itself. So then you look at if all of these things that someone could react to, not just dust mite, can trigger an allergy, then the symptoms would be the hay fever you guys already know, but that would be your skin as well. So lots of patients who have eczema, very badly controlled eczema, they go to their dermatologist, they're on tons of medication, very expensive creams, but they're just not coming right with their eczema. Many of those patients would say that they're itching all night. They stay awake at night and they scratch. They put their creams on, but they wake up in the morning and they find that their back is red or behind their knees are red. And that's when your solution comes through, because when you're lying on your mattress, you're exposed to all of the allergens. And on the mattress allergens, if you're living in Cape Town, even in Gauteng actually, pollen is in the air all the time. So you open your window, pollen is in the air in your home, which means that those tiny pollen fragments or cat and dog allergen dander fragments are in the air in your home. And if they're in your home, when they fall down to the ground after a few hours, many of those will fall onto your mattress. So I think we must get maybe the idea into patients and to doctors that even though we say clean my bed is for dust, you guys are removing the actual dust, but that doesn't mean it's only dust mite. It's got cat, dog, pollen, it's got everything there. So that's your nose, your skin, and lots of asthmatics as well. Many patients who are asthmatic will say that we wake up in the middle of the night and we cough. So that gives you an indication that the dust at night might be an issue. And then we streamline into dust mite, because if they are coughing more during the day, if it's someone who is doing sports and they find that when they're playing rugby, that's when they're coughing on the open field, then we're looking more towards a pollen allergy. But lots of patients who might say, we wake up at 3 a.m., we cough, our nose or our eyes irritate us. So those are the symptoms, particularly at night. Nighttime, and the other symptom that streamlines towards dust mite specifically would be winter. Many patients would say we struggle more in winter compared to summer, because in winter we tend to be indoors more. I know COVID kind of threw that off a bit because we were indoors most of the time, but we spend more time indoors, and the blankets and the duvets on top of the mattress. So remember, you are vacuuming the actual mattress, but in summer, patients might just have a sheet on their mattress, which they can wash regularly. In winter, they've got a blanket which might have been sitting in the cupboard for a long period of time. So winter time, even the mattress and their bodies get more exposure to the dust. I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. So, and I think you've just reinforced that it's quite a widespread thing, and we aren't able to narrow it down and say, well, dust mite, what are your symptoms? And they say one or two things. You say, well, I can confidently say we'll get the dust mites out. So it remains quite a wide, which that's fine. I mean, if we understand it to be that, we can explain it that way, which is great. So thank you.
Great. I'm actually going to pose a question of mine now, and that's just out of interest. We know that dust mites is one of the most common, if not the most common, of the allergens out there. But roughly, what proportion of the population are allergic to dust mites? And can you be allergic, and can you also get onto the scale of being sensitive to that? I know that's often spoken about when it comes to food, is that people have a sensitivity versus an allergy. Is there any sort of indication of what that percentage is? And are there particular age groups that are more sensitive than others?
Okay, so the first part, I honestly wish I had an answer to that, but I don't. Purely, Barry, because I don't think that most people who are allergic to dust are necessarily tested properly. So if you look at our entire population in our country, I think probably 5% of our country is actually seen a specialist who would be able to streamline the fact that they're allergic to dust to start with. So we don't have that statistic. And actually speaking, even internationally, they don't have that statistic. We know that when we look at the world population and we look at all the different allergies of patients who are tested, we know dust mite is up there. But what about, I would say in South Africa, 90% of the population that's not tested. So we can't really say with confidence that there's a specific percentage, but in that 90%, I'm pretty sure that if we had to look at dust mite would be the most prevalent. The other reason why it's difficult for me to answer your question is, I say this off the cuff a lot. I think that almost everyone on earth has allergies today. I say that like very candidly to many patients. I often see people, it's a bit of a curse because you see people in a restaurant, you see people in the mall, I actually look at their faces and I look at their noses and you could see the symptoms and you could see the lines on their face. And I can see that this person is struggling with hay fever, but many of the patients just think that it's normal. So there's a whole bunch of people that probably have these symptoms as well, probably have, hay fever, asthma and everything, but don't actually know that it's dust, which is the cause of it. People just say, oh, it's seasonal, it's spring, it's this, or it's that and stuff. And I can tell you in my own circles with my friends, often when we're having conversations, I look at them and say, well, do you snore at night? Does this happen? Does this happen? This is what I need you to do. So that's why we actually can't give you a specific statistic, but I would say from what we know is 30 to 40% of the country probably has hay fever. And in that 30 to 40%, I think the number is larger than that. That was our last statistic. In that, probably if you look at anybody who has confirmed allergies, more than 60% of them probably are allergic to dust mite. And the key in South Africa is that it's in low income and in your middle and high income patients, because dust mite is that thing that's prevalent. You wouldn't really see cat and dog and horse and mouse allergen in rural areas because they get more farm exposure. Mm-hmm. But dust mite is not affected by farm exposure. Mm-hmm. Dust mite is going to be prevalent whether you come from a poor area or whether you're in a fancy home with a fancy mattress. And the second part of your question, just remind me again, Barry, was?
I just said, are there any like sort of ages that are more sensitive or more predisposed to dust mite allergy?
So the answer to that is no as well. So usually what patients who have a predisposition to allergies go through is something we call an allergic march or an atopic march. Okay. So very often kids would have eczema first when they're born. And then some of them develop food allergy, and the food allergy then tends to, as they grow out of it, hopefully develop into environmental allergies, and that goes on to your hay fever and asthma. So that does tend to happen where we pick up the dust mite allergy, perhaps when they're 5 or 6. But many of these patients, if they're prone to having allergies, they're wheezy as children, they probably you pick up these allergies very earlier on. So no, I would say that dust mite allergy is prevalent in the young and the old population.
Okay, that actually links to another question I was going to ask, and now I'm going to jump over to Yannicka, who had a question around presence of dust mites in different countries. But one of the things we talk about is the impact that allergies has on child development and obviously avoiding allergens early. I mean, what sort of impact can there be on a child's immune system if they are being exposed to allergens at an early age?
Okay, so this is a very broad question because allergens in general,
or dust mites in particular.
Okay, so it works a bit differently with different allergies. With environmental allergies as well, it works differently with different allergens. Dust mite isn't really one of those where your exposure is going to affect whether or not you're tolerant or allergic to it. Okay. It works that way with cat and dog, and I don't know, maybe research in the future might change and we might get more information. But currently we can't say that if you are not exposed to dust mite as a kid, that might help you. And neither can we say if you're not exposed, you are exposed to it, that it might be better for your immune system. I can say that about peanut and egg. I can say if kids eat it earlier, it's better for them because they're less likely to become allergic. But we can't say that for dust mite. And then when you look at the environmental allergies as well, research has shown that animal exposure, so kids who grow up in the home, because you guys are going to be dealing with patients who obviously can afford clean my bed. So those are not patients who are living in rural areas, but kids who grow up in a home where there is a dog or a cat are less likely to be allergic to dog or cat. So that has been found and has been proven. And actually it's more for cat than dog. So because, and the reason they find is because the cat allergen is just very tiny. The dander is so light. We say that it's of a very low molecular weight. So for example, if a cat was in my house now, today, then I lived with a cat. If I moved out of here today in 2025, if you had to come move into my flat and there's been no cat there for 3 years, you would still be exposed to cat allergen because cat allergen is one of those things that takes years before it moves out. So because it's so light and it's so small, it tends to be in the environment, even when the cat is not around, even if the cat is outside. So kids, as they're growing up, whether the parents like it or not, they're inhaling the cat allergen, and that helps with desensitization. That has not been found for dust. So unfortunately, we can't say that.
Okay, excellent. Janneke, I don't know if you recall your question around the where dust mites are found, if they're more prevalent. I don't know if you want to pose that question.
Well, I just would like to comment on what you discussed right now, because the Asthma and Allergy Foundation here in Norway is publicly actually going out saying that 14% of the Norwegian population has allergies for dust mite. They actually, they actually stand for that. It's something called Mycoteam. I think it's a Norwegian research center where they do a lot of research on the inner climate and also loads of other stuff. And they are sort of very acknowledged as a independent unit for sort of speaking out, saying what's true or not. And so the Allergy Foundation is really using this, saying that this is a fact. What it is with other allergies and the percentage is there, I don't know. But this is used on something we have called the Allergy Guide, very active Facebook sort of, it's a sort of a private organization, I think, but they also use this a lot, saying that 14% of our population is that. So that was that. Whether that is true or not in the national picture, I have no idea. I mean, you know more about Europe, and
that's actually lovely, and it's good because at least we have a starting point. But you see, it wouldn't unless they're testing everyone in the whole of Norway. We can't say it's 14%. So it's 14% of those who are tested, which might be 50% of the population. But that's actually great because we don't have that statistic everywhere. So, it's very, very good to know that. And unfortunately, so I have lots of colleagues all over Europe, But I'm just thinking now, as you're speaking, it's good information for me because I don't have anyone from Norway. So it's really nice to know that.
Could you try to get this guy in the asthma and allergy? He's the assistant secretary general, and he was very not negative, but he was trying to shoot me down when the first time I talked to him, and he sort of he meant that we couldn't go out and say that 60% of our dust mites in the household is in your bed. And that's what we sort of say on our, we are not saying it that barbastic, but in the Norwegian, it sounded like that. And he said he couldn't stand behind that. He said that he wouldn't say that is truth. So we have changed the webpage a little bit now to get him on our side, sort of thing. So I have to work on him quite a lot because he's, these guys, they want to be the king, they don't want to be told what's what. So I have to find my way in with him because it's really important to have them on our side. Yeah. So that was a little bit of my question to you as well in regards to getting through to doctors. We have doctors, of course, in the university that is same sort of background as you have, maybe at least in sort of that direction, because allergies are huge here in Norway as well. Lots and lots of babies and children is very badly affected because they are so much inside, and we have so closed houses. In the old days, the houses was breathing, but now what they build now is so proper, so the inner climate gets so tight. So it's a really big problem here. So to get out with this, to do it the right way, to reach into doctors that to get to see what this can do, I can see that I'm sort of going, ooh, what should I do and say to actually get into them? Should I try to get home to them to do a demo? But that's a long haul, Yeah.
I think so with the 60%, I think with Norway, with the doctors there, yeah, they might be a bit resistant to use that. But what you need to use and what you could use is the bed and the mattress. Because yes, maybe depending on which part of the world you live, and Norway is a first world country. So I think your pollution and your pollen and your allergens are monitored in a different way from how it is in many of the other countries, including even in Europe. So you guys are probably a bit more advanced in that, and they might have specific statistics. But why this kind of device would work is even if you have, say, 100% of the dust that's in your home, so anybody who has any allergy, you're going to have dust in your mattress, you'll have dust in your sofa, you'll have dust in your carpet, and you're going to have dust in your curtain. But nobody sleeps on their curtain. Nobody hugs and holds their curtain. Nobody sleeps every day for 6 to 8 hours on their cushion, and nobody sleeps and lies on their carpets all the time. So the way you need to spin it is the exposure on the skin, that your mattress is that one place that you are lying on. Your skin is actively touching. So, for kids who have dust mite allergy, their face and their cheeks, which is what gets red and itchy and irritated, is touching that pillow every night. And some kids are on that for 10 hours every day. And your skin, if you've got eczema, or if you've got urticaria, so, adults get those red bumps or welts on their body, that means your skin is already slightly inflamed. Now, if your skin is slightly inflamed and now you're lying on your mattress, that's just going to make your skin itch more, and it's going to make it worse. So that's why the bed works in terms of, irrespective, if it's 60% or 40% or 20%, you're not every day, 365 days a year, sleeping on your curtain, where your skin, which is your immune organ, is touching your curtain directly. And I can tell you from my patients, just last week, let's see if I can find a picture of her. I have a little kid who's allergic to dust mites where her level is 100. Anything more than 0.3 is positive. Her level was more than 100. And I've had to do this to her a few times. We've had to wrap her up. And she's got such bad eczema. I'm sure I've got pictures of the eczema itself. So if you look at the hands, right, you could see that, right? The discoloration. So this is just with dust mite allergy. And what happens is when you've got eczema, your skin barrier is slightly broken. So when someone like this lies on their mattress, then their skin
this on the web.
Sorry, that's my Siri. Their skin then gets exposed to dust mite every day and they scratch all night continuously. So this works. And this is how you know a bed solution would work is we wrap these kids up. Right? So we totally wrap them up. One of the reasons to wrap them is to keep the moisturizer and the creams we use on the skin. But the most important reason to wrap them up is, like I said, you could buy the most expensive cream on earth and then you apply it on your skin. And if you are then allergic to dust mite and you go lie on your mattress, you're going to itch and then you're going to take your fingernails and scratch the cream off and you're going to scratch your skin. So that's the, you know, and I think apart from your doctors in Norway, I can tell you the doctors and the GPs, specialist dermatologists in South Africa aren't aware of this. So with eczema, you just, by simply removing them from an environment, because in the hospital, when we wrap them, they're not lying on an upholstered mattress. The hospital mattresses are foam mattresses. So it doesn't have the dust mite. And in hospital, they're in a sterile environment, no carpets. You lock this child up in a ward, you wrap her up after 3 days. It's a miraculous improvement. And I've got tons of pictures on my phone of adult patients who just by wrapping them, and by wrapping them, you just telling the allergen from the air, we're wrapping you up. We don't want the allergen to constantly itch your skin and inflame your skin. So that's how you're going to target those doctors. And it's also for you. It's also for you guys' knowledge, you know, and your confidence as well, to know that when you remove someone, you know, the best example I use for patients like this is diabetes, right? I always tell patients, if you've got diabetes and the doctors put you on insulin, right? And let's just say, you know, doctors give these patients cream and they give them asthma medication or hay fever medication. If you're still going to keep eating cake every day, your sugar is not going to be controlled because it's going to raise your sugar level. So for someone who's allergic to dust, that's the sugar for them. You put them on the management, but then they inhale the dust, they inhale the pollen. So they're still going to get that inflammation because you're treating it, but then they're inhaling something they're allergic to. So it kind of prevents the management from working optimally.
Would you say then with such an extreme child like you were explaining now, would it help a lot if her bed got cleaned every
I think your current recommendations are fine. It's 3 months, 3 monthly, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those recommendations. Yeah. I think those recommendations are fine. I don't think it's necessary to do it more than that. See, and I've told Charlie and Tracy this as well, is it's not the cleaning is not removing all the dust mite allergen. We've got millions of dust mite allergens in our mattresses. What the cleaning is doing is it's removing a significant portion so that they're not continuously laying eggs and multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And I think you guys have used this in your advertising as well. The dust mite enzymes and the feces are also very big in causing the inflammation, especially on the skin, not so much in the nose, but on the skin. And when you're doing this, because the dust mites are alive, but the feces are dead. So when you vacuum and you're removing a lot of the feces, so that has a big impact because you're removing the quantity of the feces as well. I just want to show you, there's another picture of a girl with, you could see the dryness on her scalp, right? Also allergic to dust mite. And I had to do this to her for a day, right? And you can see how smooth the skin is after 1 day compared to how it was. And this is crepe bandage, covering them up with crepe bandage because you're just giving the skin a break from the constant exposure to the allergen that causes the itching and the irritation.
Amazing.
Just a note to everyone, we may lose this meeting in about 7 minutes time. So if it's unlikely we would have finished up at that point. So if we get kicked off, if everyone can just please join again using the same link. So just use exactly the same link. Just Thulja, with regards, obviously we've been chatting a lot about the skin sensitivities, etc. But what is it when it comes to asthma? What's taking place with the? I might be getting a little bit like technical here, but I sometimes have spoken with asthma sufferers where they haven't even put 2 and 2 together. They say they're asthmatic, but they're not thinking about what's triggering it, etc. How is it that dust mites or dust mite feces, what are they doing when someone is asthmatic and causing issues?
So essentially, it's all starting from your nose, right? So you are going to inhale dust mite that's either in the air or in your mattress into your nose. And once it gets the inside of your nose, you know, we all know it's red inside, and that's what we call a mucosal surface. So inside of your nose, if you're allergic, is going to basically mount a response and a reaction. Your nose is the start of your airway. I always tell patients your nose and your lungs are connected. It's all one. The best example of that is COVID, because with COVID, what people were actually dying of was lung issues, not being able to breathe. But we're all wearing masks because whatever starts up here, that inflammation eventually carries down. So when you've got inflammation in your upper airway, in your nose, because you're inhaling something that you're allergic to, eventually that inflammation spreads down to your lower airways. And your lower airways is that's what asthma is. Asthma is basically, you've got pipes in your lungs, and it's when those pipes get inflamed, either from inside or from outside. And in most cases, it's inside and outside. Those airways get inflamed means that the size or the diameter is not large enough. So when you're trying to breathe in and you're trying to breathe out, you're not able to catch a big enough breath. And that's why you feel breathless and patients feel tired and they feel, you know, that they are feeling tight or constricted. And essentially that inflammation starts all the way from the top when you're inhaling something that you're allergic to.
Great. So Tracy, did you have a question that you wanted to pose? If so, you can unmute
Sorry,
yourself.
I'm still on mute.
Yeah.
No, I'll come in at the end. I'm
Sure.
fine for now, Barry. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. If anyone does have a question as we're going through, if you've got a specific question and it's maybe linked to what we're discussing at the time, just jump in and feel free to add. Obviously, we got questions we are running through, but this is an opportunity for you to pose those questions as well. I'm just going to go ahead.
Okay, quickly,
yeah?
just something that Thulja said a little bit earlier was when you were wrapping that young patient and you had them in the hospital environment, which was sterile, but you mentioned the foam mattress that you won't have a dust mite presence. Is that accurate? Is that what I understood? Because obviously we come across foam mattresses and standard mattresses, so just interesting to know that.
So I wouldn't go on the line and say that it doesn't have any dust mite, because dust mites are going to be anywhere. And even the fabrics, and some of the hospitals have curtains as well. So if you got even a little bit of dust mite in the hospital, in the linen, that could then get into the foam. But remember, the foam mattresses in the wards are quite thin. Right. The dust mites like dark, hollow surfaces and hollow areas. So the mattresses that we're dealing with at home, it's got a large area inside for dust mites to kind of sink in and continue to multiply and lay eggs as well. Also in the hospital, the foam mattresses are covered with, they're not comfortable. All of you who've been to hospital know that. So they covered with, I'm not sure what you call it. Would it be leather or that kind of like a stiff covering?
Almost a plastic,
So
yeah.
Almost like plastic. So that plastic would prevent more dust mites from penetrating through. So I'm sure if we took the foam and we put it in our homes, then it could be colonized with dust mite. But I think in the hospital, also between every patient, they're using alcohol, it's on the plastic, and that's why you would not get the same amount of dust mite.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Janneke, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have some experience and from other countries than South Africa, as you are on the board, on the international board. And because when I spoke to this, my very dear friend in the Asthma Allergy Foundation, he was sort of meaning that we didn't have such a big problem up here with DustMite.
I'm just going to quickly say we're about to lose this this meeting, so get ready to log back on. You might have to continue the question shortly, Jannica. Sorry.
Okay, so we really wanted to, if there is a difference between the cold climates and the warm climate, do you have some experience there? Have you? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's different types of dust mite. We have different organisms within the dust mite itself.
Yeah.
Generally, dust mite is one of those allergens that's prevalent in most parts of the world. So irrespective of the climate, but